this started, everyone. Here we go. Come in this room, everyone. Bringing it in. Look at all these beautiful educators, advocates, multilingual learners, Delaware educators who have done such incredible job. Here we go. Keynote, please down. 113 in the room. Look at this. Look at this. There it is. I'm sure it is. So cool. So great to see everyone. I'm going to hand it over to introduction. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. So much to see everyone. This 127. Up there, are they nothing much? Look at this. 132. Welcome, everyone. Beautiful. Welcome. Let's get this started. Alright. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. All right, handing it over to the introduction. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being here, for engaging in learning for the last 2 days. We're really excited to close out our conference with Dr. Elsa Cárdenas-Hagan. Dr. Hagan is a bilingual speech-language pathologist and a certified academic language therapist. She is the director of Valley Speech Language and Learning Center in Brownsville, Texas, which was established in 1993. She also works with Texas Institute for Measurement, Evaluation, and Statistics at the University of Houston. Dr. Cárdenas-Hagan is the author of Esperanza, Hope, a Spanish language program designed to assist students who struggle with learning to read. Her research interests include the development of early reading assessments for Spanish-speaking students and the development of reading interventions for bilingual students. She was the co-principal investigator of a longitudinal study funded by the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development and the Institute for Education Science that examined the oracy and literacy development in English and Spanish of Spanish-speaking children. She serves as the vice president for the International Dyslexia Association and has authored curricular programs, book chapters, and journal articles related to oracy and literacy development for multilingual learners. We are so pleased to have her here to share with us today.
Thank you. And thank you all for all the work you do in caring about our students and caring about students becoming multi-literate. And it is just such an asset. And we all need to be multi-literate because I don't know if you know this, but I worked in many, many years in the Houston Medical Center, and I was the director of head trauma rehabilitation, and I've treated more than 2,000 traumatic brain injury victims. And guess what? Those victims that had these terrible head injuries, the ones that were multilingual came out of coma quicker, they rehabilitated quicker and got back to school and to work. So we know that it's such an asset to be multilingual, multi-literate. We know it delays the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia by 5 years. And I'm going to challenge you, if you only speak one language, please try and learn a second one. And by the way, sign language will count for your second language. So we are here to really make sure that we can also become multi-literate. And as you heard today, my work has primarily been really focused on students who were Spanish-speaking students, really looking at them becoming literate in 2 languages. And I'm going to share with you the results of the studies, and also I want you to take away the certain strategies and routines that you must do to help our students, because they are evidence-based. So thank you for being here. And just want to let you know, I have lots of slides on here. I will get to all of them as quickly as I can. I could talk on this for 5 days to you and not be done, but I have an hour, and I want to share a lot with you in this 1 hour. I want to share with you all those connections across the heritage language and second language, foundational skills, and really about how we can implement these evidence-based practices with our students, and being always very mindful of being culturally and linguistically responsive, right? I have a QR code right here for you if you'd like kind of the format of some handouts. So I'm going to give you a moment or two to collect this, and then if we need it, I can do it again at the end. So I start with telling you that I'm so excited that I'm invited to Delaware, and excited that people are really caring about trying to do the very best for our students from these linguistically varied and diverse backgrounds. And what I want to tell you is this is a very fast growing population in our schools. And we have more than 5 million of these students in our schools attending public schools. And we also know that the majority of these students speak Spanish in their home, getting close to 80%. I live in Texas. And for us, the minorities are the majority, and 91% of our students they classify them as English learners. 91% speak Spanish in their home. If we look at states like California and Texas, we put those 2 states together, we have the majority of the students. However, all states are increasing in their numbers. If we look at other languages like Arabic and Vietnamese and Chinese, whether it be Mandarin or Cantonese, we see that they are representing about 2% of the population. So I don't care if it's only 2%, every child matters, every language matters, and every context matters. But here's the amazing thing. Remember, I told you I worked in head trauma rehabilitation for many years. And what I want to tell you is the brain is so amazing. And when people tell you that the bilingual brain is different, I just want to tell you, we all have a brain. The brain is an organ. You have a brain. I have a brain. You have a heart. I have a heart, right? But when we look at what happens in the brains of our students, we see, wow, the same areas get activated, no matter the language. What gets activated first? Touch the back of your neck, right? The very base stem over here, the occipital lobe. That is what gets activated when we see print, right? Come over here above kind of your left ear, and what are you going to find there? You're going to find that we're going to be processing sounds and connecting those sounds to print. And we come over here, getting closer to that Broca's area, and we see that we use that to put together those sounds to articulate. We use it to read. And then up here, we would use it to really reason, and those frontal lobes, right? And what we see is it happens very quickly. Students that have reading difficulties, such as dyslexia, they try to kind of overactivate the right frontal area of the brain. Through interventions, we're able to demonstrate that, wow, voila, we can get that left temporal parietal lobe working, but they're still overactivating in that right. And we think there's a story to be told there. If our students who are multilingual, they also use these very same centers, and we see kind of like more blood flow also coming towards the frontal lobe. So it's like so interesting to see, but really language is universal. Humans are meant to speak. Reading is invented, but reading is language based. And so we must work on language as we're working on literacy. I am sure all of you know about the National Reading Panel report, right? And that report said there's 5 areas that we need to focus on: phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. That was what we knew, right? By 2006 into 2007, we really knew about what to do with our students who were developing literacy in a second language, right? And that's the report of the National Literacy Panel on Language Minority Children and Youth. Give me a thumbs up if you knew about that in that chat box, right? And that reaction. A lot of people didn't know that we had this meta-analysis available. And what we know is, oh my gosh, I see lots of, oh, I love it. So what did we learn from that? We learned that we're going to work on these very same areas, but we're going to make adjustments. And those adjustments are going to be really focused on language proficiency. We're going to make connections across languages with those cross-linguistic features, right? And we're really going to help to develop not one language, two languages. And what we know is when we have these students have some kind of opportunity to develop first language and first language literacy, they're going to do better than if we put them in English only, right? However, in our country, the majority of these students are serviced in English as a second language. That's what we have. We do see some surges of dual language programs, but the majority are serviced in English as an additional language, right? I want to tell you, give me I want to see how many of you know about IES practice guides. Give me a thumbs up if you know that. I want to see how many of you know about that. But we actually have these Institute of Education Sciences practice guides. And these practice guides will have some information, not only in teaching literacy to monolingual English speaking students, but also about teaching academic content and literacy to English learners in the elementary and middle school. And at the University of Houston, we have the National Center on English for the Success of English Learners focused on adolescent literacy for these students who are learning English as additional language. And I'll give you a website at the end. So let's think about here, you know, what, and it's really easy reading. You know, it's been vetted, but it comes up with 5 recommendations and it tells you which ones have strong evidence, which ones have moderate evidence, and which ones have very minimal evidence, right? And here, just as an example, saying, oh my goodness, you have to teach a set of academic vocabulary words. And by the way, these students need, all students, they need 12 opportunities for use. Write that down. You need to create 12 opportunities for use to really, really help the students reflect and understand and be able to use these words, right? We have to integrate the oral language with the written language instruction. And we have to do this across all the content areas. And so I never thought that I was going to be in science classrooms, math classrooms, social studies, in addition to language arts. But this is the work that we're doing now. And what we're trying to teach every teacher is that you are a language teacher, you're a literacy teacher, and you're a content area teacher. And that's what we have found, that as we bring in these kinds of practices into and across the day, we get better results on language, on literacy, and content knowledge. That's the exciting news. Okay, I probably won't see as many hands up. Give me a thumbs up if you know about the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and you know this report, Promoting the Educational Success of Children and Youth Learning English. That was in 2017, all right? And in 2017, this consensus report, please pay attention, it says, provide explicit instruction in phoneme awareness, phonics, oral reading, fluency, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and it added writing. So what are we going to do? What are some of the recommendations? Be explicit and systematic in that instruction. Bring in all that academic language opportunity all across the content area instruction. Provide what we know helps these students, those visual and verbal supports, because we want to make the content comprehensible. When we engage in these small groups, peer-assisted learning opportunities where we are more willing to use our language, it's not so, you know, it's not so nerve-wracking because we're willing to, you know, have mistakes and because we're learning an additional language, right? We capitalize on our students. They bring assets to us, right? And they bring knowledge. And I'm going to give you another website, mylanguages.org. And in there you can know a lot about a student's home language, their heritage language, and know about, oh, what connections does that have to English, right? So that you can make those cross-linguistic connections, right? So that's what we want to make sure of. And of course, we want to screen for their language and literacy skills and monitor their progress. How many of you know about MTSS for Ls? This is really, it was a 10-year project. It's over now. It was 2 iterations of this project. This is called the multi-tiered systems of support for English learners. And what we said here, we have some literacy briefs, we have some resources and tools for you to use. Once again, what are we saying? Bring in those high quality language and literacy, scaffold for those linguistic and academic needs, bring in the culturally relevant principles, right? But first, our teachers, you have to be knowledgeable in first language, second language development, and first language and second language literacy development. We have our project, a Project Ellipsis, came up with this 3-tiered model that had some, it wasn't us that came up with a 3-tier model, but we adapted it to really meet the needs of our students who are learning additional languages, that no matter if you're in the general education classroom in tier 1, or if you're in tier 2, that small group instruction, or tier 3, very intense intervention, that we need to be thinking about the language proficiency levels. Are my students in front of me at a basic level of that language proficiency, intermediate and advanced? And how are they in home language versus second language? And then look at the blue triangle, right? In this blue part of the triangle, you'll see CLRT, and that stands for those culturally, linguistically responsive teaching practices, right? And so as we work across these tiers of instruction, everyone needs to incorporate and think about how to scaffold for basic, intermediate, or maybe they're at an advanced level, and bring in those culturally relevant, linguistically responsive teaching practices. We also have some tools for you to use, some tools to really think about how you all are operating in your schools. And these tools have rubrics and scoring sheets and action plans, right? To determine, where are we on a scale of 1 to 5 in how we implement screening, how we implement progress monitoring, how we assess, how we provide interventions or instruction. And how are we going to get better and better at what we do in our campuses? And so that's all there for you to use at mtss4ls.org. Here is another QR code if you want to read a little bit about these education research reports, and I'll give that to you to see, that's your homework to go back and read some of this. All right. Thank you so much. So now let's really talk about, I'm a speech and language pathologist as well as a certified teacher and dyslexia therapist. And what we want to make sure of is that we all base everything on what we know about students. And we know that students have to, in order to be able to be a skilled reader, you have to be able to handle the print that's in front of you, and you have to have excellent language comprehension skills to get to skilled reading. That's by the simple view of reading, Goff and Tomer. Now, Dr. Hollis Scarborough expanded upon that and said, okay, to have those decoding skills, you have to have that instant word recognition. How do you get there? You get there by knowing the sounds of the language, that phonological awareness, knowing the letters and sounds and those correlations, knowing how to spell, having that sight word recognition, especially in a language like English that has some irregularities. But she also always described that language comprehension is essential to be strategic and active reader. You have to have world experiences, background knowledge, opportunities for developing vocabulary, right? You have to understand how language works, how this text structure works, and how to put 2 and 2 together to reason, to make inferences. But by knowing about that text and text structure, you're going to become a very active and strategic reader. So I've got to get these foundational skills done in those very early years, but all the while I need to be working on language comprehension. And what I want to tell you, the foundational skills, we can get that solved in kinder, first grade. It should be done by second grade, right? And then we read to learn and get all the way from third grade on forward. Now, what we know is how important vocabulary and world knowledge and knowing about these language structures and all of that becomes even more weighted. In the early years, we put a lot of emphasis on foundational skills with comprehension. But as we go through those academic years, that comprehension is essential, and all of that goes into comprehension. So in 2014, at the International Dyslexia Association, we developed a term called structured literacy in June of 2014. I was on the board at the time. And why did we come up with this term? Because people said, well, what are you all about? Well, people were calling us the phonicators. All they care about is phonological awareness and phonics. And we're like, no, we're much more than that. We are multimodal, systematic, all of that. So now we have a term, structured literacy. But structured literacy is based upon language, the sounds of the language, right? Putting those sounds together to form words and words to form sentences and to understand what that meaning is. And all the while, why do we do this? To get to that spoken and written discourse so we can have deep reading and effective written communication. We don't ignore that students need to have attention and concentration. They have to have good working memory skills and short-term memory skills to remember what they're reading, to get to that deep comprehension. Absolutely, absolutely. But we're not just phonicators. We want a comprehensive and evidence-based approach that we call structured literacy. Now, this is Elsa Cárdenas-Hagan. This is not the IDA, but what I'm saying of structured multiliteracy is, yes, it's based upon those components of language, but we are going to use the structure of 2 or more languages using those cross-linguistic and cross-cultural features as a strategy. So I know a lot about the sound system in 2 or more languages, how that sound system translates to that print system, right? How that makes words and how I can generate these sentences, right? That make sense. I can use morphology across languages, right? To really teach me. I ran into an assistant principal just 2 days ago that said, oh my God, I took a course from you and it was many years ago and you taught me about morphology and I still use it and my vocabulary is so much better. This is an adult telling me this now. And I was so happy. I go, that must have been very impactful for you and to still be using that today. And so we want to be doing this kind of work with young children, right? And we want to be doing it for students who are multilingual in this spoken form and having them be multiliterate through written discourse. And we want them to have that deep reading and effective written communication using those culturally and linguistically responsive practices. So, ta-da, we came up with a new infographic and this is it. And we really want to protect structured literacy. Some people are like, oh, we do structured literacy, we do it, but do they really? It's an approach to instruction that's grounded in the science of reading. That's the why. This accumulated research that we have, right? And who's going to teach it? Every teacher, whether you're in general education, whether you're doing some tutoring or small group instruction, or you're doing some intense work in intervention. Look at the what. We're saying that we are using all those components of language, the domains of language. That means the phonology and the morphology, semantics, and the syntax and pragmatics. But we're doing that as it pertains to reading and word recognition and comprehension and that written expression. And we have to have foundational skills of writing too. I can't have a great composition if I don't have great handwriting and spelling skills, or at least great keyboarding skills and spelling skills, right? But how we're going to do it is in a very explicit, systematic, sequential, cumulative manner that's very data-driven and very highly interactive. Of course, we have to scaffold our instruction. We need to be very purposeful and plan our instruction for every type of task and text that we put in front of our students, right? And so we want to integrate language, reading, and writing instruction to get to that support for automaticity, fluency, and reading proficiency so that our students, right, can really learn to read and read to learn. That's the idea. So you can't do anything without language, and every language in the world has sounds. English has 44 sounds. A language like Spanish has 22 sounds. So look at English. It has double the number of sounds in Spanish, right? These sounds form words, and words across languages have meanings. Those are my semantics. And when I have, oh my God, the English language, 60% of the English language comes from Latin, right? 15% comes from the Greek. If I know about these Latin and Greek word parts, these morphemes, that's going to help my understanding of words, right? That'll lead to my understanding for comprehension, both oral, that listening comprehension and that reading comprehension. I have to know how words work. Do you know that's going to help me to not only to read, but to write? And pragmatics. Did you know every language and every culture has kind of these unspoken rules about how you use language? How do I initiate a conversation? Do I look at you, right? How do I change the subject, right? How do I, talk? Is it very direct or is it more indirect? These pragmatic language skills are related to culture. So how does this relate to reading and writing? If I have phonology, and I'm going to have phonological awareness, I'm going to be able to put those letters and symbols and sounds together. I'm going to be able to read. I'm going to be able to read with fluency, and I'm going to be able to spell, right? If I have a rich vocabulary, that's going to help me for my decoding, my reading comprehension, and my writing. When I'm an expert at syntax, did you know syntax helps your reading fluency, but it also helps your listening and reading comprehension and your written composition? Pragmatics. You know, when we're learning another language, we tend to learn the informal or social registers of the language. We want to get to the academic registers. We never discount the social registers, but I have to know my audience, right? And I have to understand that context and that culture to get into my reading and writing and my expression. So language is connected to reading and writing. Language supports literacy, absolutely. But did you know that literacy will help you with your academic language? So it's this reciprocal relationship. Language supports literacy. Literacy supports my academic language. Don't forget that. So here's a little quiz for you. Get ready. Julio was told to chill out. And he thought that meant, let's go outside in the chilly weather. Oh, here's that saying and that use of the language. So could he benefit from A, morphology, B, phonology, C, pragmatics, D, semantics, or E, syntax? What do you all say? Put it in your chat. Chill out. You know, that's a saying. What does that refer to? Well, that chill out would refer to pragmatic language use. Absolutely. Fatima was reading a book and she didn't understand the word reaffirmation. Let's take a look at that word. What compositive language could have helped Fatima understand this word? Is it morphology, phonology, pragmatics, semantics, syntax? Let's look at the word reaffirmation. I think it would have been easier for morphology. Right? To do again, affirm, and shun, the state of affirming again, right? Jamal asked the teacher for the thing to cut the paper. Well, Jamal had a concept. Jamal was missing a label for that concept. What could have helped Jamal? Morphology, phonology, pragmatics, semantics, syntax. He needed semantics, the new word and label for that concept that Jamal had. Annalicia thought the teacher said missed tea. In fact, the teacher was asking for Misty. Let's think about that. This happens to us as English additional language, learners and speakers. What happens here is Annalicia needed help in what? That phonology. But part of it might have been my teacher saying Misty instead of missed tea. We have to watch our language. Slow down the rate of your speech. Say each word, enunciate each sound, and have pauses between words. So I don't confuse missed tea for misty. Roberto told his teacher that yesterday he walked to the park. Now this one's tricky. I think I might put two things that could help him. What would you all say? Morphology, phonology, C, pragmatics, D, semantics, E, syntax. You can put it in the chat. Well, yesterday, it should have been yesterday, he walked. I needed that past tense ED, right? And so that would be syntax. I could also say morphology, learning that suffix ED. So I would accept both. Nice. Everyone put a fist in the air, and I want to tell you, no matter where a child is born, when they're 3 months of age, they're cooing. When the babies are 6 months of age, they better be babbling, ba, 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 ma, 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 right? When they're 12 months of age, they better be speaking their first words, right? And following one-step commands. In other words, go get the juice, right? That's going to be important. When they're going to be 2, they're going to put 2 words together. So 1-year-old, they are saying their first words. 2-year-olds, they're putting 2 words together, right? And then they're producing vowel sounds, and they're producing the sounds made with the lips, with the vowels, b and p and m, right? Now they're 3. They put 3 words together. They start to use pronouns. I want juice. Yo quiero jugo, right? And they start to use back sounds like k and g. And they lift their tongue behind their front teeth and they say d and t. Now they're getting closer to 4 years of age. They're in preschool. And when they're in preschool, they should be speaking in 4-word sentences, using simple sentences, right? They start to do analogies: up, down, in, out, arriba, abajo, adentro, afuera, right? Now they're in kindergarten, 5 words. Kindergartners, you better make sure they're speaking in 5-word sentences. That's your goal, kindergarten teachers. Look at the sounds I'm expecting. Sounds like ch and s, ooh, and z. Now they're 6, they're in 1st grade. They better be speaking in 6-word sentences. And you know what happens in 1st grade? It's pretty darn amazing. But in 1st grade is when all the speech sounds are, mastered. We see that they can attain all the speech sounds in a language that they've been studying in 1st grade. Now, if I'm learning English as an additional language, it's going to take me a little longer, depending on when I started, right? You know what the last thing that happens are those L and R blends: bull, pull, tra, dra. That's the last thing on phonological awareness that occurs too. It's so amazing. The developmental milestone of speech matches the developmental milestone of phonological awareness. Awesome. Now they're 7 years of age. They've already gone through that 1st grade. They're now in 2nd grade. They're using 7-word sentences, right? They comprehend up to 26,000 words. All right. They're refining their syntax. They're producing all those blends. Yeah. And if they're 8 and above, I would expect 8-word sentences or more. So if Samuel's in the 1st grade and he cannot produce the sound j, is that a delay in development? Well, if Samuel, right, was learning English as an additional language, nope, that j is a very challenging sound. But if it's Samuel and he's been a monolingual English speaker and he still can't produce the j sound, then it is a delay. Carmen's in 2nd grade and she's speaking in 5-word sentences. Is that a delay? Well, if Carmen is a monolingual English speaker, yes, because 5-year-olds speak in 5-word sentences. If Carmen is new to this English language, then no. Carmen's at some of the beginning stages of 2nd language acquisition. Marcella's in 3rd grade. She's inconsistent with her understanding of abstract language. Is that a delay? No. And it's not a delay whether you're a monolingual English speaker or learning English as an additional language. That understanding of abstract language takes years and years to develop. We also say that, Dr. Jim Cummins, Dr. Steve Krashen, and Terrell, they talk about learning another language, that if initially you're taking it all in receptively, and then you start to speak in some short sentences, and then you start putting these words together and make these simple sentences, and you're still going to have grammatical errors. I expect that, right? That's going to happen when we learn another language. Absolutely. It's a part of learning another language. But then we get to speaking in more complex sentences, and it takes us 5 to 7 years to get to the fully advanced language proficiency stage, where we have an incredible academic language, right? And where we're participating in the classrooms, and you can't even tell that English is our additional language because we have a tremendous resource of vocabulary and we can express ourselves very well. But what happens to the students that aren't coming along as you would expect? And I'm going to give you a case example right here. So here we go. This child came to me. This child was going to be entering it was in the summer. It was June. In August, the child was going to be entering kindergarten. The family comes and says the child isn't speaking. And so I do, and what I want you to do, step 1, collect 50 response language sample. In other words, show them a picture, give them a picture book. They retell the story to you, or you ask open-ended questions, but you give them 50 responses. You get 50 opportunities for responding, right? And so this is what I did with this child. I asked, tell me about your favorite book. No, like, and child repeated book. I go, tell me about your favorite movie. Do you like movies? Like movie. Which one's all about your favorite? Batman. Can you tell me what happens in the movie Batman? Car, Varoom. I gave him credit for Varoom. I knew that meant fast. Tell me the other characters in the movie. Tell me all about them. Notice open-ended. Robin. Tell me all about Robin. Robin friend. What do Batman and Robin do? Student answers, fight. What else do they do? Student answers, win. Can you tell me more about Batman and Robin? No. So I went on to another subject. Tell me about your favorite sport. But just look right here. I gave 50 chances of responding. I counted every single word. I wrote down everything that was said. And then I counted how many words did I get in those 50 opportunities. If I counted all those words up, it adds up to 72. Well, let me see. The score is going to be called MLU, mean length of utterance, MLU. So that 72 divided by 50 gives me 1.4. This is a 5-year-old, and I got 1.4. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. So I've got to get this student, and I want this student to be kinder ready. So I got to get to, he's going to be 5. So I got to get to 5-word sentences. So where do I start? I became diagnostic and prescriptive. Let me see what I got here. Oh, like movie, jump ball, win game, get towel, hungry too. I got it. Let me work on the pronoun I. I like bowl, I jump ball, I win game, I get towel. And some other pronouns. All right, couple of weeks later, this student is speaking in 3-word sentences. I've got a subject, a verb, and an object. So let's see, what else can I work on? I want to get to 5. Right now I'm at 3. Oh, I know. I'm going to add some articles. I win the game. I get a towel. So another couple of weeks, I got 4 words. It's now getting closer to August. I want to get this child kinder ready. I need 5 words. Let me start with adjectives, right? I'm going to start with color adjectives. I get the red apple. I get the yellow banana. Let me start with sizes. I get the large towel, right? I get the small towel. So from June to the beginning of August, the child started with 1.4, and we ended up at 5.2. That is being diagnostic and prescriptive with language. And what happens is we do a lot of sentence starters, and a lot of patchwork. But what I did is I looked to see, what does the student already have? Let me add a feature, so maybe if I wanted more, I would have added, if I had more time, I would have added conjunctions. That would have given me a compound sentence. Oh, I know, I could add prepositions and prepositional phrases, right? That's going to get me to complex sentences. But I did everything in a very systematic and explicit manner and gave multiple opportunities for use. And we started doing this in a project that I have in New York City Public Schools in the Bronx. And I was just there in the month of March, looking through the schools and going in the classrooms, right? And what I found was, here's these kindergarten kids, and they're speaking in 5- and 6-word sentences, and they're all students who have been learning English as an additional language. This works, being diagnostic and prescriptive in our teaching, all right? So at the MTSS for L's website, we also have what we call the ELONs, and you might want to use this in, classrooms. We call it, this English learners, oral narrative scale, right? And here you can see how well are the students pronouncing and producing, the sounds of the language, how fluent are they? What does that grammar look like? Their use of particular vocabulary and their comprehension. And that can kind of give me a sense of where are we today and where do we want to go? And I think that complements the language sample very well. So mylanguages.org, this is what I use when I'm teaching students. So I want to just show you the connections across languages. Look between Spanish and English consonants. All right. So I have in Spanish, b, right? And p and m, just like in English. I have sounds like g, just like English. I have sounds like s and t and v and w and x, just like English. Here's some opportunities. Do I go back and teach them? Oh, this is a B and it says B. Well, if they already know that in their home language, then I just teach them, hey, look, you already know this. I give them credit for what they know. Look at Arabic. Arabic and English. They have B and D and K, right? And R and N and Sh and th. Let's capitalize on what they know. Let's look at Vietnamese. Here we go. Vietnamese has those bilabial sounds made with the lips, b and p and has o, right? But you don't see that there, do you? That's challenging for Vietnamese speakers. Look at Cantonese, even Cantonese, guys, b and p, right? And they have and t and d. Amazing. Ukrainian. We've had students come in from the Ukraine and they have those sounds b and p and and they have w and t and d and ch. Punjabi in English. I am just showing you. Look at, do you see some commonalities across all these languages? I hope you do. This is us capitalizing on the assets that our students bring into our classrooms. What's going to be challenging in English? Those short mouth sounds, right? That j is challenging. We know this. We know this. But here I want to teach you about making some connections. My dad always had a hard time with that sound j in the English language. But you know what? In the Spanish language, the sound for ch is ch, just like in English. Everyone put your hand on your vocal cords and say ch, ch, ch. There, you got it. Now, I want you to say the sound ch, but this time I want you to add voicing to it. Make your voice box work. The sound becomes j, j, j. Turn off your voice box. Ch, ch, ch. Turn it on. J, j, j. There you go. I tell my dad, $50. That'll be $50 now. The Spanish medial D is the English TH voice sound. So if I said the word for finger in Spanish, it's spelled D-E-D-O. The first D is not pronounced like the second D. Dedo, right? When that D is in between two vowels in Spanish, it is the English TH sound. So when students write the word father, F-A-D-E-R, you're going to say, good for you. You got the sound. You're using your letter in your home language, but the letter in English is TH. The Spanish vowel U, right? It is R-O-O-U, right? So they might write moon, M-U-N, and you're going to say, good for you. You got the sound. Our new way to write it is O-O. In Spanish, we have that trilled R. In English, it's not trilled. We have to soften it. Spanish does have a soft R. If I said the word for face in Spanish, it's spelled C-A-R-A. Let me pronounce it for you. Cara. Now, I want you to say the word letter, like you wrote a letter. Say letter to yourself. Now you're going to climb a ladder. Say ladder. Say letter, ladder. Guess what happens? Our tongue flaps up and down. That's called a flap. In Spanish, para, pera, is the same sound. So when they write letter, L-E-R-E-R, instead of going, what? You're going to say, good for you. That is your symbol that you use in your home language, but in English, we use T and D. That's us being very knowledgeable about the structure of the language. We don't have to know the language to know something about the structure. Look at Arabic. In Arabic, there's no sound like in English, right? But Arabic has the sound b. Touch your vocal cords again, b, b, b. Now say b without the p. There it is. We got it. In Arabic, there's no sound for v, right? The letter V makes that sound in English, but they do have the sound for the F. Same thing, say f, no voicing. Now say it with your voice box. In all these other languages, I want to tell you something. There's no S blends in the beginning of words. So they're going to say, I speak a Spanish, I drink a Sprite, right? I'll have some spaghetti to eat. So I tell the students, you know what? Show me your teeth, spaghetti, Sprite, Spanish. Those S consonant blends in the beginning of words of English are very challenging for all these other languages because S blends do not occur in the beginning. In Vietnamese, it's mostly 1 or 2 syllable words, so the English consonant clusters are also going to be challenging. We're going to have trouble with the j and the ch, right? And the sh and the j, but we can use sound approximations. Cantonese. Those consonant clusters are challenging, right? In Cantonese, we don't make a difference between the long and short vowels. So that's going to be challenging again, but using these minimal pairs can be very helpful. Ukrainian. Did you know that in the Ukraine, that sounds like t and d and s and l that are made with your tongue behind that front tooth, right? Guess what? They become sounds that you make in the middle of your mouth. Same thing with and b and p. We all have them in English made with your lips. But in the Ukraine, depending on where they are in the word, they can be called what we call semi-palatized. So that means that it's a little bit further back. So we have to be aware of this and the why behind the what that they're giving us, right? Punjabi, learning that English alphabet system and the consonant clusters. These are just examples of how we can make connections across all these languages. But I have some very good news for you. If a student has these phonological awareness capabilities in their home and heritage language, they're going to do great in the English language. We see so much connection across languages. I'm just going to show you an example of this work that we did between Spanish and English. When the students had Spanish phonological awareness skills, guess what? It helped their Spanish reading. When they had English phonological awareness skills, it helped their English reading. That's within the language. Now let's look across languages. Wow. The correlation between Spanish and English phonological awareness is 0.92. I am 0.08 off from it being a perfect 1.0. And that probably represents those new sounds I was telling you about. J and Z, right? And If I'm a good Spanish reader, I'm going to be a good English reader. Look at that correlation. Oh, one more way. Your Spanish phonological awareness helps to tell us how well you're going to read in English. And your English phonological awareness will tell us about your Spanish word reading skills. So you see, there's this relationship within language and across languages, cross-linguistically. So let's take advantage of that. And so what I want you to do is something different starting tomorrow. When you have these students in your classroom and you want to explore their phonological awareness skills, for example, let's find a target new sound. So here my new sound is going to be j, very challenging. So say the word for me, ham, everybody. Ham. Now change the h to j. What's the new word? You got the word jam. Now let me show you that visual support. This is the strawberry jam that I'm going to place on my toasted bread. How do you say that in your home language? Alea. Let's use the word in a sentence. I eat strawberry jam. Very nice. The word is bet. Change the b to jet. What's my new word? Jet. Oh, here's a picture of a jet. Another word is airplane. How do you say jet in your home language? Very nice. Let me use it in a sentence. I will ride in a jet tomorrow. How about you making a sentence? So I did the same thing with pig to jig and hog to jog. So here's the routine for these students. Find that targeted sound. Use those visual supports. Give a friendly definition. Connect it to their home language and have them use it in a sentence. What did you do for phonological awareness? You added language. You added that meaning. You added that use, right? Very important for our students. Now let's make a connection to print. This is where we get the most results. Let's connect that phonological awareness to print. Say jam, say jog, say jet. What sound did you hear? The sound we've been working on, j. Very good. Now let me show you the words, jam, jog, jet. Each of these starts with the letter J. Let me give you a key word to help you unlock the sound, jaguar. Can you say that? Jaguar. The letter is J, the key word is jaguar, and the sound is J. Repeat it, J, jaguar, J. Do you have this letter in your home language? Spanish speakers are going to say, yes. What is it? Jota. Tell me, do you have that word? Jaguar. Good. What's the sound in your home language? Well, in English, the sound is J. So we're going to say J, jaguar, J. Can you use the word jaguar in a sentence? The jaguar can run fast. Turn to your partner and say the letter name, the key word, and the sound. Now we're going to practice writing and reading words and sentences that have this letter. So I made the connection from phonological awareness of targeted sound to learning the letter and sound, and then I'm going to apply it to reading. But the only way I can apply it to reading is if my students know those syllable patterns of English. English has 6 syllable patterns, and golly, I didn't learn this until I was an adult, that when the vowel is followed by at least one consonant, that's when I'm going to say ah, eh, ah. And if the vowel in the syllable did not have a consonant, then I'm going to say A, E, I, O, U. Oh, I wish someone had taught us all that, right? So that's the difference between open and closed. Now, in first grade, we did learn vowel, consonant, silent E. Name, theme, 5, row, cube. But if you're a Spanish speaker, you're going to want to say name, teme, five, rope, cube. We have that pattern, but the E is never silent, and the vowels will always say their name. So this is learning. And then we have a vowel followed by an R, and that vowel makes a very unexpected sound. Most of the time it's going to be but we have AR, it's going to say R, and we have OR that's going to say or, but only if it's in the accented and stressed syllable, like in star. But if I said the word dollar, collar, it's not in the stressed syllable, it becomes And in the OR, if I said the word doctor, professor, the OR becomes It's not in the stressed syllable. But look at the word world. Oh, there's that OR, but this time it's saying and it's in the stressed syllable. But anytime it follows a W, say worth, worthy, right? Work, world, it says that rule when 2 vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, no good, less than 50% of the time. Look at it'll say and ooh, right? EA will say E and A and eh. So I have to learn each and every single one of these vowel pairs. And then I have these endings that we call final stable syllables, like candle, sample, ankle, uncle, puzzle. And we know that endings like shun and jun, they go there too. So it's so interesting to look at these 6 syllable patterns of English. And when I bring up words that look very similar in English and Spanish, I never had to use this in my Spanish language because the vowels never ever change. So here you have the word 10 in English, and I have ten, means to give it, right? No. In English, you say dame, it's right, a woman, and in Spanish, it's dame, give it to me. Pie is a dessert in English, pie, it's a foot. All right, so be careful. The words might look similar, but have different meanings and different pronunciations, even though we have those same kinds of syllable patterns, but we never had to learn them because the vowels never ever change. There's only 5 vowels in Spanish, they never ever change. Now let's make a connection to reading, but let's bring in language. Students, you learned about these syllables, these closed syllables that have a vowel followed by a consonant. All these vowels are going to be short. You also learned that sound j. Let's get ready, students. Read them out loud. Jam, jet, jig, dab, jam. I like the way you read those. Now, students, I want you to pay attention to the sounds here. I want you to read the words that not only have the j sound, but the a after it. This is really focused on phonology. What would the students read to me? Jam, jab, jam. Very nice work, students. Prepare the next row. Ready, read. Jim, job, got, jen, just. Students, I want you to think about the meaning. I'm going to ask you about some of this vocabulary. Can you read the words to me that are persons' names? Jim, Jack, Jen. How did you know? They had a capital letter. Very good. Now, which word in row 2 can be someone's work? That's right, job. Next row, prepare, ready, read. Jet, jig, jen, jack, jab. Students, I'm going to ask you a question about the grammatical feature of these words. Can you tell me which word can act as a noun, person, place, or thing, a verb, action, and a describing word, an adjective? Think about it, students. That's right, jet. The jet airplane that I showed you earlier. We're going to jet out of here when we're done with our session today. And I have jet black hair. Oh, that had multiple meanings and multiple grammatical uses. Great work. Let's read the last row. Ready? Read. Just, jam, jig, jab, jet. Now we're going to talk about the use. And let's see. I want to use a saying. I was only kidding. What word can replace only? I was Just kidding. That's right. I'm going to go and get my headphones and I'm going to blank to the music. We use a saying. I'm going to jam to the music. That's right. Or I was stuck in a traffic jam. And I taught you about the strawberry jam earlier. What did I do here? I turned in the decoding practice into also a language activity where I brought in the phonology, the vocabulary, the grammar, and the pragmatics. So I'm addressing language as I'm addressing literacy. So I prepare questions related to phonology, vocabulary, syntax, pragmatics for our students. And guess what? They become very meta-linguistic. They start thinking about this. I also know that I want to build their fluency in connected text, but here's what you need to know about these students. Just having fluency isn't enough. Reading fluency and comprehension is moderated by oral language proficiency for our students. So we're going to make sure that we're always working on that language as we're working on that fluency. And our students might need some help with the cadence of the language. And I like to use these kind of pencil swings for them to get the hang of the kind of phrasing that we use. And I have the students read first for accuracy, then for really building that fluency and expression. And then I say, okay, we got it all put together. Now read it for comprehension. And in one sitting, I see great strides in that one sitting with those multiple readings. We also know that for students to learn words, we know that cognates matter, these words that are similar across Spanish and English. These are examples of cognates, but guess what I do? I show the students that we can work on language as we work on cognates. Like right here, I ask students, do you hear the sounds? Tell me the syllables, right? How about in your home language, right? Tell me the meaning is, right? Can you tell me if there's any word parts in here? Author, yeah. Person who writes. Can it be used as a noun? Yeah. In English, can it be used as a verb? Yeah, he authored 3 books. But we can't do that in the Spanish language. It can only be a noun. Can you use the word in a sentence? So guess what I did here? I worked on the phonology. I brought in the sounds and the syllables. I worked on the meaning and the meaning units, the morphology and the semantics. I worked on the grammar. And I worked on the use, the pragmatics, and I even got it to spelling. How is it spelled the same or different? Once again, what did I do? Bring in all the components of language as I was teaching vocabulary. 60% of English is, we know from Latin. And so I bring in all these and the 15% from the Greek. I did the very same thing with the morphemes. The 2 best word learning strategies for these students are cognate awareness and morphological awareness. And we embed language as we do this activity. The last thing I leave you with today are these are the 8 best evidence practices for reading comprehension. And I just made a real simple way to remember them. And I call it 3PV3RQ. And I write about this in a book called Multisensory Teaching for Basic Language Skills. I start with the purpose. What is the purpose of what we're going to be reading? We prepare a connection. We make a prediction, and then we have them work on the vocabulary. We have them read. I do a review with them and a retell. And one of our studies, we left out the retell. No good. You need the retell. And then we have them answer questions and generate questions. This is how I bring in those 8 best evidence practices. And then here's just an example in your handouts of how that lesson would look. Okay. So as we think about, can we do this work with our students? Absolutely, we can. And by the way, I don't want to forget that as the students are learning to read, it's great to bring in wonderful books across lots of different subjects so they can have the read alouds. And we do this in middle school too. So, and in science classrooms and in math classrooms. So just remember to be culturally, linguistically responsive. Linguistically responsive have great evidence for outcomes in reading. Culturally responsiveness has great outcomes for belonging and also being used as an asset. So thank you for all the work that you do, and make sure that you bring in some of these practices. Here you have some of the resources that could be very helpful to you.
Thank
and
you.
I have a book called Literacy Foundations for English Learners that has a lot of this in there. Oh, thank you, Maria. And here's some references.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Cárdenas-Hagan, and lightening us all this afternoon. And I think there was just so much to grab onto in that, a lot of great practical examples. And if you're interested in learning more, certainly grab the text, and there are many upcoming professional learning opportunities that we'll be sure to share with our educators across the state that also use your text as the focus. So we are really grateful to have you here today to speak to our
you. Thank you. And I think there's a free book study on PATAN website, the Pennsylvania Technology, PATAN. And I did like a 10 or 12-week sessions with them, and it's all for free.
Excellent. Well, we will search for that and add that to the resources for our conference participants as well. Oh,
it's on YouTube. They said.
YouTube. There you go.
Okay.
Find anything on the internet. So we are very thankful for your time and your expertise in joining us. And we are thankful to our educators too, who have been with us now for 2 days, learning, engaging, active, excited, energized, pushing forward our mission to multilingualism and ensuring that our students here in Delaware are getting the absolute best experience that they can from the moment they enter our schools. So we are so, so thankful for all of our educators taking that time out of their busy, busy schedules and time away from their students to be here and learning with us and alongside us. So please, we will be sending out information to everybody immediately following, with codes for PDMS and registration and other follow-up information. Stay tuned, everybody. As soon as we have recordings of those sessions that we were able to record, we will get those in a secure place to be able to share as well. Thank you. And I love the little alien on our mission.
Amazing.
They have more space themes to
Okay, I didn't know what the alien. I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
We have had aliens and spaceships and many, many space puns over the last 2 days. So
thank you for explaining.
Jessica said your session was out of this world.
Oh, thank you. That's pretty cool.
We can see all of your love in the chat. Ladies, do you have anything else before we close up?
Thank you so much. What brilliance. It just can't even tell you about how many crossovers there were, but it just fit together so well. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you very much. Thank you for your great work and for really making sure that we're prepared to help all students, especially these from linguistically diverse backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Take care. Bye-bye.